You're listening to the B&H Photography Podcast. For over 40 years, B&H has been the professional source for photography, video, audio, and more. For your favorite gear, news, and reviews, visit us at bnh.com or download the B&H app to your iPhone or Android device. Now here's your host, Alan Weitz.
Greetings and welcome to the B&H Photography Podcast. It is the end of the year, and what we're going to do today is review all of the episodes that we recorded this year, talk about the ones we liked, and see if we can come up with a common factor of which one of these episodes was our favorite between John, Jason, and myself. It's funny because yesterday John made up a whole list of all of the episodes we did this past year, and I'm looking through it, and it really is amazingly varied, the kind of subjects that we hit, stuff that's really serious and provoking, and some stuff that's kind of fun and loose. But I'm
provocative. You mean?
Provocative, yes. Okay, I love those multi-syllable words. Thank you, John. You bail me out all the time. But yeah, it's really impressive, and I could say that I think we're really proud of the kind of work that we've been doing here and the ideas we've been putting out there. And it seems that most of our listeners seem to, and the guests, and everybody seems to be on board, and it's terrific, and we really enjoy doing that. Anyway, all of that said, I went through our list and I picked out about a half a dozen episodes that really got me going, starting with the beginning of the year. I think everybody will be on board with Norman Reedus' Art is as Art Does. That was an amazing episode. There was a buzz in this whole building that day.
Yeah,
it was really, really interesting.
Yeah. Well, we should just throw in some context. You know, people who don't know Norman Reedus, an actor and a photographer from The Walking Dead, and
the guy with the crossbow.
The guy with the crossbow.
Daryl,
and you know, an actor in movies, and you know, a really nice guy. And yeah, he just talked about his photography, and he was great.
Yeah,
and so
he was just a regular guy. I mean, it was kind of nice.
Unbelievably humble.
Yes,
and that episode has to go on the list just because it was him, right? I mean,
Yep.
And you're right. You know, the doorman of the building, people who work for us were like running down the street to catch up to him. They never realized what a star he is. Yeah.
I think more people learn that work at B&H that we actually do a podcast that day.
Yes.
Then,
Now they know what goes on in this room.
Yeah, right.
I'll tell you, full disclosure, okay? I had never watched any of his shows before, and the evening before the show, I watched 3 episodes just to get an idea what was going on. But I enjoyed it, and I watched more since of that. So it was
cool.
It was good for me.
I want to see the motorcycle show that he's doing, where he goes around the country.
I saw a couple of episodes.
Yeah,
it's a lot of fun.
I saw some too, but I'd like to catch up with it again. Yeah.
So anyway, another episode I really liked was the Franken cameras with the camera doctor. And it was interesting talking about blending technologies of old and new, and Frank's background is absolutely amazing, this stuff. Eleanor Carucci, A Hurricane in Its Perfect Power. That was a very gripping episode for me. She has an amazing personality, amazing insights. Her pictures blew me away. I mean, I opened up her book, Mother, and I'm going through this stuff, and I'm saying, here's a person who is like not afraid of anything, who just goes for everything in her gut. Really provocative stuff and really, really nice. Episode 24 of this particular year was, we did the Legends. This was at one of the shows we covered. Keith Carter in particular. I could listen to this man talk all day long. Aside from being an amazing photographer, he can talk and tell stories and stuff.
You guys had a pretty good report. That was good.
Yeah, that was fun. I mean, that guy's real. He's real.
That episode also had Doug Kirkland.
Yes.
Legend, and Joyce Tennyson, who was great.
Yes.
So we pieced them together into a little thing, and it was good. And FYI,
Joyce Tennyson, by the way, I hadn't known about her work before that, and I love it.
Yeah, she's brilliant. A great speaker.
We got some good responses to that episode, mostly for the fact that they influenced so many people. Some great photographers came out and said, "Wow, you know, that was a great chat with her." Yeah. But Keith Carter has a new book, a 50-year retrospective book that people should take a look for.
Yeah,
his work.
Yeah. His work is brilliant.
Yeah.
I mean, to see his work and to listen to his words, man, that is just an absolute treat.
It was cool.
And if anybody has an opportunity to go to one of his seminars, do so. You're going to walk away with a lot of good stuff. The last episode, actually 2 more episodes. Number 19 was the Analog Renaissance and Brooklyn Film Camera. I'm an analog junkie, an old camera junkie and stuff like that. I love digital, but I love the old world too. And that was a great show, a lot of fun, very insightful. And last but not least, Jay Maisel and Stephen Wilkes and the documentary Jay Myself. That was an absolutely brilliant
Yeah,
2.5 hours we spent talking here or so.
You stole one of mine on that one. That was a fantastic
I
episode.
think we all voted on that one.
Exactly.
I really, really do.
Yeah.
There's no two ways about it. You got Stephen Wilkes and Jay Maisel, two giants, and their chemistry together is phenomenal. They have, what, a 40-year relationship or something like that? And the film that he did was absolutely brilliant.
Awesome.
And just to watch the two of them play off of each other. Two seasoned pros, no ego nonsense.
Yeah, and we'd had Steven on before, and to see him with his mentor, it was just like, it was unbelievable.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
good point.
Yeah.
Here's a clip from that episode.
I have to put this on the record. I know this is going to upset him terribly, but when I saw Steven's work, he was an amazing photographer at the age of 19. He had stuff in his portfolio then that would look good in a portfolio today. So I was very impressed with him as a photographer. As a worker, it's another story.
Can't imagine that.
Oh, God, I know where this is going.
Am I finally going to be allowed to publicize it?
Oh, go ahead. Help
Please.
yourself. Go ahead.
He had come with the idea he was going to work for me. So I asked him, well, do you know bookkeeping and everything? He said, oh, yeah, sure. If I had asked him if he had flown into outer space, he would say, yeah, many times.
I would have told him I was a brain surgeon.
Exactly. So during the course of events, at one point, I had him doing bookkeeping for me, which makes me just as dopey as anybody. And he comes to me with a check to sign. And I said, why am I sending these people a check? They're an advertising agency. Well, I sent you a bill, and the bill is for $3,000 and change. And I said, Stephen, it's a purchase order. We get money. We don't give these people money. But, it's funny you asked that question about an editor. I never had anybody with an editor for me. But of all the people that worked for me, Stephen was the one who really looked at pictures and learned from them. All the other kids did it to get it done for me because I had him set up all the film. Stephen, it was tough to get the film from him because he was looking at it. Everybody was making sure it was right side up. He was making sure it was sharp or that it was well composed. That was he really
That was
looked,
the joy.
He looked at the pictures.
Yeah, that
He
was.
looked at the pictures.
I loved that. That was my favorite time to be able to go. He would say to me, 9:00, go up to Fleet Messenger Service, pick up my film, and I would go up there, pick up the film, and then we would. I'd go down. I'd get back down to the bank by 9:30, and I would set up usually 20 to 40 rolls, whatever he had shot, and then I'd go through every single roll, and we had these setup cards, and I'd write the name. But I would look at every picture, and then I'd call him. I go, "Yeah, I got the film set up." He goes, "Yeah, good. How's it look?" I go, "Oh, it's great, man. You got this incredible shot on roll 5, and then you got this other shot." And he was like, "Really? Like you looked at it?" And I was like, "Oh yeah." He goes, "Well, why don't you just come upstairs and you can edit with me?"
You said you called him. He was on another floor.
Yeah,
of
he
the
was on
bank.
6th
Okay,
floor,
gotcha,
and so what I would do is I'd bring the film up to 6, and then I would sit down and very much what the film is kind of what our that was a very typical night for me. I'd come into work at about 8 in the morning, and I wouldn't leave till probably about 11 because my favorite time of the day was hanging out with him editing. That's where we, I think our friendship, and I think where he taught me so much about, photography, and we would just talk about stuff. It was just this organic kind of magical experience.
So, are you a night owl? Did you work at night? Did you edit at night?
I've always worked late at night. Yeah.
He's very nocturnal.
Yeah.
I remember I'd come into the building, and I don't know if I ever told you this, Jay, but when I'd walk up to 4. That's where my place was, where I had a little office up there. And I remember going up, and Jay would had a chalkboard on every floor, and he would at night. Literally, I never knew he slept at all. He would be making notes on this chalkboard and every day I came in, there was a different note on the board. That's stuff that had to get done, and I just used to be completely like, when do you do this? It's like, it was just that kind of thing. Like, who's writing all these things? And I knew it was him, but he was just going up and down. So he's very much a night owl, I think. Yeah.
So creativity and chaos go hand in hand. Now, you are a powerhouse of creativity, okay? How was it working with Jay back in the day? I mean, was it manageable? Because, I mean, I could see Jay going off in 80 different directions, and maybe you're trying to contain him, or is that not the case?
Yeah,
it seemed to be organized chaos.
Well, yeah, that's a great description, I would say. But I think for me to just describe what I felt, though, is it was when he's locked in on something, it's like, whatever it was, if it was like today's an engineering project. We're going to figure out how to get a 500-pound air conditioner up into the front of the main room.
That's right.
And I come back, again, 8 o'clock in the morning, I'm back in there, and he's been up, I swear to God, all night long, probably building this like foam model of this pulley system. I'm not exaggerating.
We did have to do that.
Zorba the Greek. Huh?
Oh no, he's like Rube Goldberg. Like he's amazing.
No, please, that was
teasing.
Not the Rube Goldberg. That was serious shit. Goldberg was
I know. I'm teasing. He was more like Joseph. Yeah, no, like
Go ahead.
Your other mentor, Bucky Fuller.
Bucky Fuller.
Yeah.
No, but
that was the engineering side of Jay.
I designed his whole
It
rig.
was an absolutely amazing thing to witness. Going from his model to an actual like execution, it was incredible. But that's the way he is. He kind of like when he focuses on something like that, he really plans everything. But I would say I always felt that. In terms of photography, it was just like he's just constantly seeing things. So he always had his camera. I would say that he essentially documented almost every day of his life through pictures, And so like the opening of the film, when you see the slides, to me, that was the perfect description to set up what you're about to see. Because most people don't know the scale and the depth of his work.
Two dynamos.
It was great.
Cool.
So that's my take.
All right. Let me jump in then. Redis is on my list for sure. And this is somewhat chronological throughout the year. Then we had Sig Harvey, who is a Maine-based art photographer, fine art photographer.
Yes.
And we also had, at the same episode, we had her, the director of the gallery where she shows at, Carolyn Wall. And I just liked that episode. I thought we kind of dug into some real subjects of creativity and what make photographers tick. And she's just a wonderful person too. So that was nice.
Eloquent woman.
Yeah, she was really nice.
We had a Kodak One episode where we talked about the Kodak coin. And what I liked about that is it was a news issue, a news topic that we jumped on, and we were able to get the CEOs of the company in and a Bitcoin expert. This is a ongoing subject that we'll all be dealing with in, the blockchain and photography.
It's obviously a controversial topic, and they got a lot of flack for the idea, and Kodak did.
Right.
And we kind of held their feet to the fire a little bit, and I thought that was great.
Yeah.
We asked some tough questions, and, we got to kind of, do something that we don't usually
No, they didn't slide through the hour, that's for sure.
And the Bitcoin expert that we had definitely, asked some pretty tough questions to them too. That was pretty cool. Yeah, that was Drew Hinkes. He's a professor at NYU.
Right. Yep. Chris Buck episode where it was just him talking about his photography, his portraits. I enjoyed that episode. We had the Kemongi Collective. We had members of that group speaking on their collective and on an exhibit that they were putting on at that point. I like that. We had a street photography episode with Ruddy Roy and Amy Touchette.
Ruddy was
an
amazing photographer and one of the most insightful people I had heard in a long time.
Yeah, he was great. She's great. We've had her before.
We had Amy before, but the vibe was good.
Yeah.
They're both working in Brooklyn. They're in the street every day, and the vibe was good. And Ruddy's great.
And he's a very good storyteller in addition to being a
Yes.
great photographer. Yeah,
for
Yes.
sure.
Yep.
Let's listen to a little of Ruddy Roy.
My story is the stories that I grew up with. It's so funny. I'm saying this because I've been thinking about it the whole week. Somebody said that what I do is I engage in misery porn. Oof. And normally I have a very tough shell. But I'm also a very humble person. I'm like, you say something to me, and depending on what it is, I'll either let you know with my eyes that you should move, or I'm going to go away and become introspective. Like, maybe I'm coming out every day thinking that I'm wearing a red shirt, but I'm actually wearing a blue one. So let me look in the mirror again. And that's what I did. It still didn't make sense. I'm like, there's a long caption, it's there what I'm trying to do. But still, this person, Khalil Poole, was very specific about the fact that I'm trying to disguise all my images through this idea of misery porn. And so I spent days with it. And I don't want to take up the time. I spent days trying to figure out why he said that. More so than anything else, why? And I remember I had to go to Fuji to drop off some equipment. And I was driving to Jersey. And I was listening to old reggae music. And every song, and we're talking about, I'm listening to music from 1976, which would make me 7 or 8 years old. First line, I need a roof over my head. The next song, anything that Bob sings, Dennis Brown, do you know what it means to have a revolution? And I'm listening to, and I'm like, they're singing about misery. And if this is my platform, it is no wonder that I'm attracted to these images. And maybe I'm not a photographer or a writer. Maybe I've always been a reggae singer pushing these songs to a camera. And it gave me so much peace to come to that realization that how I grew up, the songs I listened to, the art I saw, the books I read, influenced what I do now as a photographer. Every reggae music during the 70s, every song was about the misery that people went through. And so I found peace after that drive.
We hope you're enjoying this edition of the B&H Photography Podcast. Send us a tweet at BHPhotoVideo, #BHPhotoPodcast.
All right. We had Art Streiber, which I thought that was a pretty interesting episode that somehow it seems to get overlooked, but he's a giant also. I mean, he
Point
is,
taken. Yeah.
And what I liked about it is he was so pro, like he had his laptop and he hit every point and he was so friendly and open and also very Los Angeles, so that's kind of different from our vibe.
And he was so humble too. He sent all three of us thank you notes.
Right. Yes, I've actually
in the mail, snail mail.
Yes,
which I mean that not everybody.
And he followed up on a few other things with me also. No, he's real deal. He's good.
Yeah,
and he's a guy that is working in the Hollywood scene. I mean, he's in
for a
Vanity
big
Fair.
name. I mean,
he's huge. Yeah, and he was great. And his story about his father or his grandfather working in the magazine business was kind of nice to hear.
He goes back several generations there.
Yep. The GI Diary episode, which was a favorite for me, partly because of how it came about. You know, we did a lot of research to get David Parks, the son of Gordon Parks, and his book and his photography, which is not that well known.
But it's very good.
But it was interesting, and we also had Kendra Rennick, who started a thing called the Vietnam Slide Project. Oh, that's right. So, and we did that for National Vietnam Veterans Day, which I thought was a good timed episode.
You seem to have a lot vested in that show. I know that show meant a lot to you. You really did. I picked up on it.
I like the way that came together, and I like that show. So tennis, I like that we covered the U.S. Open, and I probably like this episode the most because we went out to the U.S. Open and we recorded there with the people from Drawbridge Digital.
That was fun.
That was a lot of fun.
The atmosphere was kind of like really kind of cool. Yeah,
and we had Chris Nicholson, who's a freelance tennis photographer, amongst other things. But to get to my favorite episode, I'll wait. There's one more, and I guess we'll wait till the end to do our favorites. But that's just a handful of the ones I like.
You're going to make us wait, huh?
Yeah.
Okay.
Why not? Jay?
Okay, so for the first one that I had in mind, I don't think this was the best episode we've ever done, but it was also a hot topic in the news, which I really dug. And it was the one with Todd Mizell. A Deadline, the state of newspaper journalism.
Yes,
we had two photographers. We had Todd Mizell and
Andrew Sang.
Yep.
Yeah, and basically what had happened is Todd, as well, along with several Daily News staff photographers, had just been laid off. Obviously, part of an overall larger trend of removing staff photographers from daily newspapers. But he's kind of a local legend, and was able to get we were able to get him on the show almost, in the days after that.
Yep.
It was a reality check for sure. I mean,
Yeah,
it was
and,
real time.
and Andrew Sang, who is a younger freelance photojournalist, kind of gave the opposite perspective or a different perspective on the same idea.
Yeah, and being so green,
Yeah.
and not having seen the industry, be what it was in the 80s and 90s and earlier,
Yeah.
it was interesting to see him.
But he had also walked away from a staff job
did.
at the Sacramento Bee
Yep.
to move to New York and work freelance. So interesting.
Yeah,
We
Todd
should have him
Wiseau
back on
thought
the
it-
show, find out if he's kicking himself about that.
Yeah, I know.
I don't know. He's probably doing all right.
Yeah. I remember he said that he walked away from that job, and Todd Wiseau was like, "Are you insane?" We don't have to include that, but
Oh, we can.
yeah, maybe. Okay, so for my next one is I'm a landscape photography guy, and I enjoy hearing about different techniques that people that are a lot better than me are using. So the drones episode, the landscape photography with drones, I dug.
Recent
I thought that was pretty cool.
Miles Morgan.
Miles Morgan.
By
and
the way,
Ryan
their
Dyer.
chemistry was great.
Yeah, and they're really funny.
Yeah.
That was another part
That
of
was
the
an
reason.
enjoyable episode.
Yeah, they had a really good banter between the two of them.
There's
so that
nothing
was
like
great.
when your guests just bash each other.
Yeah, I know.
Let's play a little clip of that. What was like the learning curve? I mean, did you start out with a smaller drone just to learn to fly it first before you started putting expensive cameras on it?
Yeah, I mean, I still don't have like a really big drone where, I'm hauling around a D800.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it started as small drones, and the learning curve was learning to fly it.
Mm-hmm.
As Miles knows, I lost one in the Rockies a few years ago, right in front of him, and I've not lived that one down yet. So
Lost it in what sense? I mean, smashed into something, or just over a cliff and never saw it again, or
over a cliff, never saw it again.
Oh, cool.
But while I'm bragging to a pilot about my flying skills,
Right, of course.
And actually, that's what got me into drone flying. Is he pulled out his drone for the first time, and I thought, okay, I've been kind of wanting to see this. As a pilot, I find it intriguing that you can kind of combine the two things that I do into one thing. So he pulls out his drone and takes off, and within a minute, I'm looking at his viewfinder and seeing the perspective change and thinking, holy cow, you can get shots that you simply can't get on the ground. And that changes the game completely for me. And then he promptly flew away into Never Never Land, and the drone was gone forever. And I thought, this is awesome. Anything that costs Ryan $1,000 just to blink is my type of thing.
So let's see here. This one is kind of a wild card. I didn't think I was going to like this episode that much, but I ended up loving it. This is the Building and Curating a Photography blog. I thought there was some really interesting stuff in there about SEO and how photographers can get their stuff out there.
And that episode's done well, like numbers-wise.
Yeah. Okay, well, I know we've talked about Stephen Wilkes, because of his episode with Jay Mizell, but I also loved the episode with him and his wife, where they talked about the day to night.
It was a good one, and I like that she came because she's the production end of this, their team, and this series is so production heavy. I mean, as we discussed with him and her, they're 24-hour shoots and blocked off locations in Africa.
Actually,
and
more than
Manhattan.
24 sometimes.
Sometimes, yeah.
He spent 36 hours in the bucket
it's
at
like,
one point.
It's like putting together a little, film, and she does all that work. So it was kind of a good idea to get her.
It was also nice to see the chemistry between not only a husband and wife, but I mean co-workers,
right.
Which is a unique situation, and they seem to get along. It's good.
Yep, cool.
Another one that I really dug was the Murray Fredericks Reflected Divine.
Right.
Yeah.
So he has a really unique work with he does with mirrors out in these sort of barren landscapes that the work is cool, and he was a really interesting guy. We actually went on location at his
Robert Mann Studios.
to Robert Mann Studios
Gallery,
Robert Mann Gallery.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that came out of the Sig Harvey episode because they share the same gallerist, and they invited us to their gallery, which is, I mean, for me, when someone reaches out and invites us to cover them,
That's good stuff.
Yeah, it's a little.
Also, seeing his prints,
validation. Yeah.
full-size prints, was just his work is amazing. But to see the actual prints, it was mind-boggling.
And I'm going to throw one gear episode out there because we really haven't talked about any. But and this was just because it was such a big announcement, and there was a lot of good talk and speculation about it. It was the full frame mirrorless cameras from Nikon and Canon. That was a fun episode because we got to talk about the biggest thing that happened in
the biggest
in gear
announcements
this
of the
year.
year.
I mean,
Geek speak.
Geek speak.
A couple other gear ones that were pretty good were the Super Telephoto episode. I thought that was good. The joys and challenges of Super Telephoto lenses, and that got some nice responses. One thing that got, I don't know if the numbers reflect this, but we did one with wildfire photographer Mark Thiessen, who's a Nat Geo photographer,
yeah.
and that got a lot of anecdotal comments of people who really liked that one.
Most of them saying, "Is this guy insane?"
Yeah.
Well, that was that was, I think, one of my favorite opening lines I ever had. I said, I told what he does. He jumps into forest fires, and I asked him, "Are you nuts?"
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But excuse me. But a lot of his work is, I mean, he is the head studio photographer for Nat Geo.
Yes.
So a lot of his work, I think that's kind of his side gig. You know, he runs into the fires, but he does a lot of stuff in studios and
It's a seasonal gig, essentially, although that season's extending these days.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, good point.
So another one of my favorites was embracing technology in the new landscape photography, and that was with Aaron Babnick and Sean Bagshaw. That one I thought really kind of went over a lot of the technology that pros are using to find locations with GPS and figuring out which way the sun is going to be facing and all kinds of sophisticated weather apps and stuff like that. Stuff that I never do. I just kind of, when I go out, I just kind of, do it on the fly and, and 70% of the time I don't get anything. So,
This kind of links up with the Miles Morgan and Ryan Dyer. These are all people that are generally operating out of the Pacific Northwest.
Right.
And, maybe we've coined this phrase or others have, but this new landscape photography that use a lot of, they play with time and stitching images and,
know. And I think technology in general, I think maybe it's because it's close to Silicon Valley or something. I don't know. But I think they're...
It doesn't hurt that they have gorgeous scenery, too, around
That's
there.
True. That's true. Yeah, you get excited to go outside and try something new.
And if they were on this side of the coast, man, it's like, okay, we can go to the Meadowlands today and shoot gorgeous landscapes.
Yeah, I know. When I go outside, I'm just like, it'll probably rain. So
here's an episode that was kind of different from what we normally do. It was called Grunge, British fashion photography of the 1990s, and we had Michael Sanders on, who is a very successful fashion photographer, but he grew up in London in the 90s, and that's where he made his bones. So he kind of discussed that period of time and the important indie magazines that came up and kind of changed the fashion industry, at least from the photography side of it. And he's a great guest, and he actually came on again for another episode with fashion model Jane Moore. And they talked about the interaction between photographer and model, and that was a nice episode too. She was great.
Okay, so after hearing all of our favorites, I think we've covered half of the episodes we did this past year, and I guess we're gonna choose our favorite, right? Okay, I'm not going first. Who's going first?
Okay, I'll go first. Yeah, actually, my favorite title. There's a lot of good titles, and we joked about this last year, but I happened to get a kick out of. The beef, chicken, or fish episode. It was a wedding photography episode. And at the end of each one, we asked the photographer what their choice was. That was Alan's genius stroke.
No, actually, I think it was yours.
Oh, was it? Okay.
Yeah, no, I like taking credit, but that was you, baby.
Okay, thanks. All right. But my favorite episode, I'm going to go with the one that we did with Greg Constantine. And it totally surprised us because we didn't really know what we were getting.
That came out of left field.
And it's called "The Story Demands More," which was a quote from the episode, and he does some really serious, important work. He has been photographing stateless people and migration detention and issues regarding migration for 15 years. Mostly in Asia, but now he's working here in the United States. Somebody who had just been out there on his own, really busting his butt to document, some of the kind of the worst situations going on right now in the globe, and we just kind of got lucky that he came to us through a connection here at B&H, and was just a nice guy, and just touched on some serious issues. So I just wanted to get that out there for that very reason. People should take a listen and take a look at his photography. And he was nice enough to send us the first edition of a journal that he published on his most recent series called 7 Doors, and it's stories of immigration detention from around the world. Here's a clip from that episode.
And the thing is with the Rohingya is that they burst into the news cycle and then they evaporate just as fast. And I mean, it now happened over from 2006 until about 2012. That's exactly what happened. It burst in the news, something would happen, and then everybody would cover it, or not everybody, but they'd get into the news cycle and then they'd just disappear.
Actually, let me jump onto that too. What's the reception that you get or your work gets and the publication that you get here compared to other places, Europe, Asia? Is there any difference? Is there any reaction that's different? Is there any appreciation?
Well, I mean, to be honest with you, I think that if I look at the work of mine that's been published, the majority of it has been published outside of the U.S.
That's what it seemed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, occasionally something will appear. When I mean Times, I mean more Herald Tribune. Or now International.
And do you work with an agency now?
No.
Or nothing? Okay.
No.
So it's all just the contacts you've made and the editors you know?
Yeah, editors I know, editors you meet, you find, you created a relationship with an editor magazine that opens up doors to continue to keep going back to them. I mean, kind of the whole thing. But to be honest with you, I also found that it's always, I think, exciting to see your work in print somewhere.
Sure.
Always. But at the same time, I think that working on these kind of stories, that exposure is so short-lived, I mean, it runs for a day in a paper.
It's probably true more so now.
Completely.
First of all, world events and national events, I mean, it's blinding. We all checked our phone before we sat down here. We immediately checked to find out if the world still exists afterwards.
Yeah.
But I imagine one of the downsides of the internet is the fact that it gives you an opportunity to get so much out so much easier. You also vanish quicker because there's such a flood of information that's being hit.
I mean, you've opened up, I think, this whole terrain that I think is just so vital for people to be discussing nowadays. And I've approached it. Maybe I started looking at things differently about 6 or 7 years ago. And even though work was getting published, the fact is I constantly felt like the story demanded more. That the people in the pictures, it deserved more than just getting published for a day or two or a week.
Looking at your sites and even the way you present the work, it's different than and we look at a lot of journalists, a lot of photographers' websites and their work, wherever we can find it. Yours is presented, at least these stories, in their own sites. It's not about, Greg Constantine and then what he's working on as much as these are the stories. They're chaptered, they're longer.
That's a good
point. When I first looked at it, I'm like, is this guy an activist? Is he a documentarian? Is he a journalist? What's going on? And that's to your credit, you know what I mean? So there is that element does come through in the way you present your work.
Well, I mean, I appreciate you saying that.
Yeah.
I really do. I mean, it means a lot. And I think that, you creating the pictures and putting the stories together and the projects together are one thing, but then, you have to remember there's a whole other part of the process of photography, and that's introducing it for people to see.
Sure. You gotta see it.
And that's probably the most important part of the process, at least for the kind of stories and projects that I'm working on. So for me, it was like, the work was getting published, but it was like, I got to take it further. And that's when I really dove into exhibitions that could be any form, guerrilla style, gallery, museum. It didn't matter what it was, as long as I could get the pictures up on walls. And I remember reading, it was funny, I went back home to Indiana. This would have been years and years ago. Went back home to Indiana and went to this small town, and there was this bookstore. And I walked in, and they had a wicker basket on the floor that was filled with old issues of Aperture in it. And I went into this basket and I pulled out, a couple issues that really caught my attention. I mean, there was one with, I think there was one that featured Jill's work. There was another that featured Don McCullen's work. I can't remember. And there was another one that featured Susan Meisaus's work. I remember there's an interview with her in this magazine, and she gave this quote that I swear to God, it's like branded itself on my memory ever since. The guy asked her about, what is your, this would have been, I think in the 80s, early 80s when they asked her this question. And it all had to deal with just the challenges of getting your work published. And she said something different. Again, I'm paraphrasing it, but she said, what do you do when there's no magazines to publish your work and no pages to be turned. She goes, well, at least there will still be walls.
Yeah.
And I mean, I even talk about it now, and goosebumps, right? Goosebumps come up on my arms because it had such a profound impact on me and the way that I've gone about my work. And all I tell you, it's just if I can get my work up on walls as many times during a year, that to me is my measure, one of my barometers of being successful in what I'm doing. And I mean, that's why, I mean, like, they'll only be up for one night tonight at CUNY, but this work on the Rohingya, it'll be up at CUNY for one night tonight. That's enough for me. It's going to be engaging like 200-300 people. They'll walk away with a whole different kind of context in their brain about what's happening in the Rohingya community, about statelessness. They'll walk away, doing hopefully everything that I hope photography and the work can do. And that is to challenge people to think about things, to rethink things, to reimagine things, and walk away with a little bit more.
So the original Stephen Wilkes episode with his wife, Betty Wilkes, about the Day to Night series was my favorite episode. I just love the guy's work. I mean, he's so technically proficient, and he's not afraid to push the boundaries of, what's allowed in photography, and just hearing about his process was awesome. And then the follow-up to that where he was on with Jay took it over the top. But I think that original episode was probably my favorite. Check it out if you haven't heard it.
Yeah, Time Vector, we called it.
Yep.
Alan.
I guess I got to do it now, huh? Oh, I got to make a decision here. I would say that probably the most, it's got to be split between the show we did with Jay and Stephen. I just found their dialogue and their insight to be just incredibly valuable because, again, they're two people who've been out there for decades, who never stop trying to do the best work they can do, who managed to keep their eyes fresh. Stephen's work, everything he does is totally different from his previous project. He grows incredibly with every project he does. And Jay, I mean, there's not much more I could add to what's already been said about him. So that show had a lot to do. And I have to keep going back to the show we did on Legends with Keith Carter, Doug Kirkland, and Joyce Tennyson. All three of them were amazing. Doug Kirkland, if you listen to the episode, he was the very first photographer I ever assisted to when I worked at Look magazine a million years ago, and it was amazing to be sitting with him decades later and talking about his career. But Keith Carter still keeps coming back to me. I just found the man to be totally enchanting as a storyteller and as a photographer, and a combination of the two.
Yeah, it was a good episode. No doubt about it. We've already given our favorites, but I did want to give a shout out to the Shooting Hoops episode we did recently about basketball photography.
I thought you were going to pick that, actually.
Yeah, no, I enjoyed it. It was really a fun episode, and it's a thing that kind of comes easy to me talking to these guys. We had Andrew Bernstein and Nat Butler, who are really the top basketball photographers in the country. So just that alone made it pretty great. And they're also old friends, so their dynamic was good. But as a favorite, I'm going to still stick with Greg Constantine.
I'm also going to throw in aerial photography with Jeff Milstein.
Oh, yeah.
That was a fun episode. He's an interesting fellow. His pictures, I always loved his pictures.
His work is great. Yeah,
yeah, his subject matter is just a lot of fun, and I just love his eye. Cool. And I think that if you look at what we have here, we have like 50 episodes. We have like 50 different kind of topics here. As somebody who's been taking pictures for decades, I find this to be a source of growth of just doing this show and listening to other people and getting just new insights into a craft that I absolutely love.
An episode of this show makes me want to go out and shoot.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
That's good to hear.
Well, there we go. There's our favorite picks of the past year, and we're looking forward to the upcoming year. If you are not a subscriber to the B&H Photography Podcast, what you waiting for? It's free, it's informative, and invariably entertaining. Subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, Overcast, Spotify, and you can always find us on the B&H Explorer website. For now, on behalf of Jason, John, and myself, happy holidays, happy New Year, and as always, thank you so much for tuning in today.